Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. So I'll make it short and I'll make it sweet because we have around 20 minutes in total. Today is all about cutting through the noise and the hype around agentic commerce. And the goal for me is quite simple. Today, I want you to walk away with a good understanding of what agentic commerce is, our point of view on the predictions in 2026, and how you can think about moving forward. I'll just start with this, our definition of what agentic commerce is. Agentic commerce is when AI agents actively help users discover, evaluate, and transact, moving seamlessly from discovery to orders in one experience. And with that definition out of the way, I will just set the scene with some predictions here in 2026. And I'll just start with giving you some numbers. Because I think the context of how big this is going to be or how small is really important. So the US is clearly ahead when it comes to agentic commerce and AI-driven purchases. Their projections, which I believe is quite aggressive, suggest that AI-driven commerce will account for roughly 15 to 25% of commerce when we get to 2030. So this is quite interesting because this means that this is not going to replace commerce on how we know it works today. It's going to become another channel. It might be a different way that users will discover and find products, but it's not going to replace it. The other statistics I brought with me is quite an interesting study done by Boston Consulting Group that have done a solid analysis on European brands and retailers. And what's really interesting is that this lines up with the data that we see from our side. And the signal is pretty clear. LLM traffic is picking up. What's also interesting is that we see that brands and businesses operating in more specialized verticals with maybe complex or niche products tend to have a significant higher traffic from LLM compared to the more generic retailers. So this difference is quite clear. The study also shows that and predict that when we get to the end of 2025, that more than 4% of the total search traffic in Europe will come to LLMs. It might not seem like a lot, but if you lose 4% of your traffic over this year, it will have an impact, of course, on your business in the end of the day. And these metrics leads us a little bit into our first prediction, and that is that we don't believe that agentic commerce will be a major revenue channel for you this year. And the reason for that is not the technology. It's more like me or you or your customers, because transacting in the new channels requires trust. And that will take time before that settles in the market. It's also a matter for businesses to learn like what product categories perform well in this channel, and understand that, of course, just like we see with social commerce. So don't build your 2026 business plan on direct revenue from agentic, but more on influence revenue, because the search is going to be the factor for this year. And just one point here is like holiday season is coming up in the end of the year. So what I'll do now is bet big now to make sure that I have visibility and make sure that I'm ready if we see agentic commerce going into transactional mode later in the year. The second slide here is all about why this is moving so fast right now. And the reason is that big tech is investing heavily into agentic commerce, not because of the short-term revenue, but more because that agentic commerce introduces a completely new interaction layer between users and businesses. And this combination of discovery, decision-making, and transaction becomes the new experience moving forward, or at least one of the experiences moving forward. And that's why this is a very strategic bet for big tech companies, but also the platform players around commerce, content platforms, and experience platforms, because whoever masters this layer makes sure that they are relevant both for users, consumers, but also businesses moving forward. So that's why you see a lot of investment, a lot of noise in this. It's also why you see platforms such as Shopify, payment gateways, putting serious money behind this and want to be one of the first ones out on the market. So it's not because all the consumers is there today, but it's because they strongly believe that this is going to be the platform for future growth and where the future battlefield is going to be. And the last prediction I just want to share is more about your website, because we don't believe that website is going to go away. but we do believe that the purpose will change. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later as well. But what we see is that your website today is mainly a large catalog site built for finding products, and that role is most likely going to change because AI agents are simply better just at discovery, finding products, selecting products, and so on. So gone will be the endless scrolling through big catalogs, but what will remain and what is really important is the trust, authority, inspiration, and the experience as well. So we believe that we're going to start seeing that shift coming in this year already. So now sharing, some of the things that we see, I'm quite keen to hand over a question to you guys. So my colleague now is just going to launch a quick poll just to get a little bit the temperature in the room and see what you believe and how much this is going to impact your business over the next 1 to 2 years. So I see the votes coming in, and I see most likely you guys doesn't see the vote, but what I see is around 35% believe that this will be a massive change in how customers discover products. There's actually more than I expected that also say that this will change how customers will transact through LLMs. And there's a few of you that kind of say not 100% sure yet. I think this aligns a lot with the conversations that we have at the moment. And of course, this also connects into that agentic commerce is not just a small thing, it's a part of a bigger AI shift as well. So let me just close the voting here. Okay, so when we look at agentic commerce, we kind of connected into a bigger ecosystem of what happens around AI. So the first thing we look at the AI play field is, of course, agentic commerce. I'm going to talk about that today. The second, the AI-powered experiences on site. That could be intelligent product configurators, recommendation, chat, guided selling, all things that improve the customer experience within your own channels. And the third area is, of course, applying AI into the day-to-day work, how to help marketing teams, work smarter, more efficient. It could be the sales reps getting proactive AI-generated signals on accounts, price recommendations, and so on. But today, we're just going to focus on the first column and talk about what agentic commerce is and how that's going to change. And before I talk about what's changing, it's important to align on how commerce works today for majority of companies. So today, most commerce journeys are built around a very clear assumption. We generate traffic across multiple channels, social, search, email campaigns, so on. But the goal is always the same, to bring the traffic back to your own website. And if you look at the diagram here, this is a fairly linear model or a funnel that traffic comes in on top and users land on the website. And then everything we do is try to optimize that experience. We do conversion rate optimization, all that, because this is how the funnel works. So you can see it a little bit more like this is like commerce today is really built around the idea that all roads leads to your website. That's where you drive the transaction and the conversion. So now let's look at how this starts to change. Commerce of tomorrow doesn't remove the website or the commerce platform that you already have, but it fundamentally changes the role. The biggest change is that the website will no longer be the single entry point. Instead of all traffic being funneled into one place, commerce suddenly becomes distributed instead. Discovery, consideration, and even transaction can now happen across different environments, across different channels. And if you look at the diagram again here, you'll see multiple entry points. A discovery, a user might start in ChatGPT or start in Google. Most likely see the social platforms trying to own this transactional layer as well. And in some cases, users might still end on your website, but in other cases, the transaction will happen entirely outside your own ecosystem. So that means that your website is no longer the funnel or the road that we have today. It becomes like one of several touch points. So maybe users are using it, or customers are using it for inspiration, the trust, the validation, but sometimes it's just bypassed completely. And I think that's a big mental shift on how we look at commerce today, because we think about all the reporting we build, all the analytics we have is built on this funnel, traffic, conversion, and so on. So one thing that doesn't change is what you have underneath, right? Your commerce platforms, your product data, your pricing, inventory, all that you have in-house, all of that still exists. but that needs to be repurposed to not just powering one road, but basically become the back end so you can support a whole new network of roads into your business. And a very interesting thing I want to share with you guys is how Amazon is also going into agentic. So they launched this Amazon Buy For Me feature last year in the US. And what it is that I, as a customer, I can be on the Amazon website. And even though the product is not in the Amazon catalog, I'll be able to find products that is, for example, on retailer websites, on brand websites, and I can purchase that inside the Amazon ecosystem. And the agent goes on the website and places the order for me. And that's a very new way and a new take and a very good example on how AI has now been put into the buying journey, and it's just, flipping this upside down. I also wanted today, so now talk a lot about channels, and I think this is a good example of what could happen or ideas moving forward. But I also want to share some practical understanding on how agentic commerce work with what's recently been released by Google, so the Unified Commerce Protocol, and last year we saw OpenAI launching their open protocol. I'm not going to go into details on what they are and how they work. We have an excellent masterclass coming up in February. It's going to go more into detail on it. But what I want to do is just share the picture here, high level, on really what this is. So first, users today, they can search, whether it's like Gemini or Google, Perplexity, whatever, or OpenAI. They've searched, they have a problem, and they'll recommend products. And that all exists today, right? And then normally that traffic lands on your website. The new thing is the agentic layer that now sits between connecting, users that sits in the LLMs with your own ecosystem. So connecting that into merchants. So that becomes the transactional layer between this discovery part and your business. So the users are able to sit inside ChatGPT, find the products, get recommendations on it, and being able to do that purchase exactly in that ecosystem. And the agentic layer then integrates into your own commerce stack where the order will be placed. So basically see that this will become a new experience layer, a new channel where the user will never land on your website. There's details on this. For example, Google offers the possibility to do iframe checkout and so on. And some of those things we're going to share later. Another interesting thing with this is that this is not built specifically for LLMs. This is actually built as open standards for anybody being able to use it. So it could even be you. So that could, for example, be that you collaborate with somebody else, another merchant. So how can I integrate into that? Well, you can actually build an agent on their website. You can integrate into their website. It could also be if you have an app and you say that I would like to have a product catalog in my app, but I don't want to build all the commerce functionality. You can use exactly the same agentic layer as an integration point into all your backend systems. And I think we see a lot of innovation here. Could also be marketplaces, just as we saw with Amazon, exactly following the same idea and the same structure. We'll cover more on this on the upcoming masterclass coming in the end of February. But I think it was quite important just to land the understanding on how this works in details, that this is not like a marketplace, but it's kind of an integration between users and your business. So let's just summarize. If we look at agentic commerce, well, we have one part that is consumers or users buying directly to ChatGPT or the LLMs. We also have a section that's more about users engaging with an agent. It could be on-site and off-site to complete a purchase. And we also see more conversation coming now around like how do we build agent to agent speaking to each other to be able to place orders. And these frameworks I showed you can also be used for that. It's not big at the moment. Personally, I believe that part can be quite big in B2B moving forward and replace a lot of the EDI integrations that we see today. So before I now lead into the last part of this webinar, I'll establish the understanding and different viewpoints around agentic commerce. I want to ask you guys a question again. And I'll see it here on screen. What is the biggest challenge for your organization today? Related to, there's most likely a lot of challenges, but related to agentic commerce and agentic purchasing in general. Okay, there's a good distribution actually between all the responses I can see coming in on my side. Readiness of data APIs and business logic being visible found in AI-driven search. Understanding where to start. Okay. So this is quite distributed across, and I think this is exactly what we see across our clients as well. It's not a single thing. It's kind of a combination between multiple things. But what I want to do with you, want to do now is basically share a very simple plan for how you can move forward. So I'm just gonna close the voting here. So if you want to have a very simple plan, it could look like this. The first step is, of course, to be found. And a lot of the things, if you want to be found in LLMs, follows traditional search principles. If you want to go deep on that, we have a full webinar on generative engine optimization that I recommend for you to rewatch. You find it on our website. I'll also, feel free to reach out. I'll make sure that you receive it. And the key point here is really visibility. If you're not visible in an AI-driven search, you're not part of the conversation moving forward, right? So that should be your base and starting point. The second step is preparation, and because you can do that already today. All the protocol exists there. They're live in the US. We, for example, do full end-to-end simulation on how transactions are going to work in ChatGPT with some of the things that we built. So all of that work can already be done today. You can prepare your data. You can go to your IT department and say, here's the protocols. I want to understand, do we already have the APIs that can support this? So the preparation can already start tomorrow. And then the last part is the transaction part. And this is, of course, here whenever this opens up in Euro, especially from the LLM sides, is that this is where you activate. And this is where the first learners, and the first ones on the market gets a lot of benefits, because you get really fast understanding on what products performs, which one doesn't. And my guess would also be that the major platforms, whether it's Google or OpenAI, will not monetize on the short term because they want to drive adoption. But absolutely ads and monetization will come. So you being out of the gates, understand what really performs and doesn't, and of course help you to optimize your ad spend later down the road. So that's one of the benefits of being first out. There's also a very different approach to this. Instead of going and say, we want to prepare, or we just want to build something to see whenever this comes. And that could be to start building your own agent. And this is actually the process and the approach that we prefer. Because the reason is simple. If you do that, you force yourself to get through all the different phases you need to. You need to force yourself to understand, can we actually do this? Do we have the APIs available? What is our tech stack? Does it support it? What about our product information? Is that good enough for us to do it? And you start and you test that in an environment that you can control. So normally it could just be a product finder, right, on your website that you do. Could be the very first easy start, and you use that as a guide for your users, right? So that's a very different starting point, but we'll basically take you through all the process end to end. And another benefit is that you will get something that you can deploy and that you can actually drive conversions on. So there's a different win-win approach with this. And with that, we're closing in on the end. So the purpose today, very short, very concrete, concise webinar for 20 minutes, landing what is Agentic Commerce. And again, I'm just going to reiterate what I shared earlier, that Agentic Commerce is when AI agents actively help users discover, evaluate, and transact, moving seamlessly from discovery to orders. The takeaways I would like for you guys to leave with is Agentic Commerce is here to stay, and it will gain revenue. It's quite uncertain about the pace of it. The technology is slightly ahead of the adoption. So you see a lot of things being shared that this is going to be big and, you need to move fast and stuff like that right at the moment, but it's because the technology is a little bit ahead of the adoption. And the last thing is optimize for visibility today. There's already gains on that. There's already revenue for you to get there, and build for the transactions tomorrow. So if you had to do that prioritization, making sure that you get the visibility right is where you get the value right here, right now. And with that, we're getting to the end of the webinar. I will thank each of you to take the time to, thank you for taking the time to join this session today. I'm going to do a shameless promotion of 2 masterclasses coming up. So The masterclass's concept is slightly different than this webinar today. It's longer, it's 45 minutes, it's more in-depth, it consists of multiple people and some conversations and stuff like that as well. So we really put a lot of focus on making them really high quality. And the next one that is related to Agentic Commerce coming up in the end of February. And this will be live demos. So we'll be able to see how does the user journey actually work. And we're going to share some things that we have cooking and that we'll be exciting to share with you. So the webinar is now coming to an end. I am happy to sit around for any questions that might pop up in the chat and answer them. So there's a question here: would Agentic Layer also work on app-only businesses? Now I don't understand the context of this question, but the Agentic Commerce layers is not built only for web, so absolutely can be used inside apps as well, and kind of disconnected a lot from the thinking of you have to deploy it on a website. It's more like a protocol that is created to sit and say, we get from the discovery part, whenever you found the products, this layer is something that can communicate in a standard way between different systems. It's not one implementation for all LLMs. So the question here, is it one implementation for all LLMs? What about open source or private ones? There is multiple protocols out there. The two biggest ones is, of course, the one that Google just released, Unified Commerce Protocol. Last year, OpenAI launched the Agentic Commerce Protocol. They both release it actually as an open protocol, which means that they say everybody can use it. It's not linked to LLM specifically. So as I showed earlier, it's like you might just say you have an app and you want to connect into the backend, you want to use some kind of intelligence in that middle section. You can do that. They're both stating that they want to become the industry standard. So now they're all fighting to create alliances across the industry to basically become the de facto standard. So how that's going to end is going to be interesting. I don't know where Microsoft is in this game. They're 100% on board on OpenAI, or where Facebook is. They're most likely going to come with something similar, and they sit with a massive user base. But this is a good question. I'll make sure that we take that with us into the masterclass as well. Okay. I think that was it. Again, thank you very much. I just have a last one coming in. So last question here. I feel a lot of the info is tailored to commerce retailers with big catalogs. Do other brands, telco, banking need to evolve in other pace with other priorities? I think the protocols by itself and Agentic Commerce, yes, it is aimed at traditional commerce. That doesn't mean that it cannot be used in different models as well. So if it is telecom banking, you should be able to do exactly the same thing. You do discovery and figuring out what products fits my need, and then being able to find that directly and even transact it out. There's more complexity if you talk about banking, because it's like personal accounts and you might have personal conditions, and telco as well. Definitely not from a discovery perspective, but the transaction part is where it's going to be a little bit more difficult. We are working us through the protocols and through the things that we're building at the moment. And there's also one big question we're asking ourselves: how is this going to work in the B2B world, where you might have significant more complexity depending on like where are you, from what warehouse are you shipping, what is the number of quantities as well. So that's still for us at least to uncover. Okay, thank you for taking the time today. You will receive the recording of this webinar as well. I wish you a fantastic rest of the day.